You are about to listen to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast, hosted by Craig Forrestall. Find Craig on Twitter at that_sports_guy. The That Sports Guy podcast is proudly featured by NFL Draft Diamonds, your draft coverage king. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some football talk.
Hello and welcome to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. I am Craig Forrestall. You might know me from Twitter as at that_sports_guy. But tonight I'm switching it up on everyone. I have high school football coach and MMA writer and reporter Kyle Carroll here with me. Kyle, what's going on with you?
Not a whole lot, Craig. I appreciate you having me on. Always a pleasure to chat with you. Like you said, I'm a high school football coach for Chaminade High School, an all-boys Catholic school on Long Island, as well as MMA writer for MyMMAnews.com, which is actually now a top 10 MMA website for news, which is pretty sweet. Been a part of it since the very beginning, and it's been quite the journey.
And let's go ahead with that real quick, because you're talking about the content you put out on MyMMAnews.com. But don't be bashful. You also have a podcast too. Go ahead, plug the podcast real quick. Let them know where we can find you.
I do an MMA podcast. I also get in a few people that don't have nothing to do with MMA, but it's Carol's Corner MMA podcast, where I get MMA fighters from the UFC, Bellator, and the local scene come on, talk about their story. Join me for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how much they like to talk, and we chat about anything they want to speak about. MMA, how they got into it, a little bit of everything. So it's just a good way to get to know people and catch up and talk about their fights and stuff. But if you want to check it out, you can go to my YouTube channels, Giblets, Jiblitz 77. Type it in, you'll find my YouTube channel. Has all the interviews on there. Or you could go to mymmanews.com and find all the articles and interviews on there as well.
And like Kyle said, he's a busy guy, but I've known Kyle a long time. Our friendship actually goes back almost 15 years now, man. We're getting old.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, we're actually frat brothers. Kyle and I, we lived in the house together. We shared a suite. It was me, Kyle, and then our other frat brother, Earl, was there. Earl had the middle suite. We had the two rooms on the end. And it was always a good time in our suite. Everyone always knew that they could come by if they wanted to have a good time. We were always down to clown. But Kyle, I'm going to take you back to the first night that we met. And I want you to let me know where I go right or where I go wrong, because I think this is where the OT pizza mystery started. So I'm going to jump into it. You ready?
Yep.
All right. So it was either a Friday or a Saturday night, because we were having a party at the house. We had just gotten back from winter break, because I remember it being cold out, and I was working the back door, which was actually the main entrance to the house on whenever we had parties or whatever. You came rolling up. I forget who you were with.
I was by myself.
Okay, yeah, because you came walking up in a group of people, and you had the Timbs on with the jeans, the New York Yankee fitted, and I was just like, oh man, this kid's not from Milwaukee. He's not from around here, because we actually went to college and met out in the Milwaukee area. And so you came up to the front door, and you actually tried to pay me to get in. You actually tried to pay me for your cop at the back door. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember that like it was yesterday. It's funny. I was coming from another party. It was the first weekend after school started, the spring semester. Like, so I just transferred in, and I walked up. I was coming from the football house, and I wasn't a fan of that party, so I was looking for another party, and I kept passing that house when I visited and when I was at school for the first week. And I'm like, let me walk up, and yeah, you're the first guy. I'm like, hey, can I get a cup? And yeah, usually I've been to so many other like parties elsewhere, like Rutgers and stuff, and you walk up and usually you go through the front door, but like, no, man, go through the back door. But you were cool. You're cool about it. You're like, come on in and party.
Did you get a free cup that night? Because I'm pretty sure I told them at the table. The table is where we collected payment, $5 for your cup, all that sort of thing.
I did not get a free cup. I did not get one. I walked around. I believe it was either Dylan or his brother, his twin brother, took my money, and then I went downstairs and I remember filling one cup of beer up, and then then it was packed down there, and then I
Oh
remember
yeah.
everyone getting kicked out. There was a fight.
Oh yeah, that's right.
There
I
was a
forgot
fight
about the
upstairs
fight.
between I don't even know who was between. I didn't know anyone at that point, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember OT. I didn't know who he was obviously at the time, but OT comes
Mm-hmm.
down and was like, "If you're not from the frat, get out of here." And
Yeah,
everyone
but
got kicked out, and I just kind of like hid by the keg.
I was saying, yeah, but I kept you. I said, no, you're cool. You can stay back. It's all right. Don't worry about it. You don't gotta go.
Yeah, you
And
and Santi found me at the keg.
yep. And then I remember, yeah, so the house cleared out, everyone had their whole little drama, everything, cooled down. And then I remember it just being dead in the house and we still wanted to go find something to do. And I remember you then saying, I have a apartment just a couple of blocks away. And it was one of the on-campus apartments from the school. And you're like, yeah, I don't have anything to eat, but like I got a kitchen. And I was, you got a kitchen? You're like, yeah, I got a kitchen. I was like, I got a pizza. You're like, wait, you got a pizza? I was like, yeah, hold on, I got a pizza. and
Yep.
then and then I don't remember if it was Teddy's or OT's that night. Two of our brothers that lived in the house with us, Teddy and OT, they worked at a pizza place, Papa Murphy's, P Murphs, and they would always bring back pizzas. And I remember I grabbed the pizza and we just bolted for it back to your place. And that was the start of it all. Am I right?
Yeah, we went back to my place. We cooked that pizza, and then after we ate it, and had a few more drinks, you headed out, and then yeah, and then you hit me up the next day, and we hung out again. Oh Lord.
But let's go ahead. Let's transition. So now that everyone knows how we met, our first night, and the ruckus that we caused, I just want to ask you a little bit about you and the coaching that's in your blood, because you're the child of a coach. You grew up in a coaching house. Go ahead and talk to us a little bit about your dad's coaching career.
Well, my old man, he's coached for about 41 years, all at Chaminade High School. He played D2 football at New York Tech on Long Island, and yeah, so he coached football for 41 years, and he was quite successful. I don't think he's ever had a losing season, which is pretty impressive. Few championships, and it's just something that I've always been around, and something I just kind of was attracted to, and the magnet just pulled me in, and I just knew from a young age I wanted to coach. That's something I always wanted to do, and then his two brothers are also coaches. They coach at Baldwin High School. One's the head coach for 38 years, 37 years, something like that, and the other one's a defensive coordinator, and they got a few championships under their belt. But yeah, it's been pretty cool to pull in the amount of knowledge that my old man has, and he's got some pretty interesting insight that many top level coaches, I have to say, don't even have, because just from doing it for so long. And he's been doing football since seventh grade, sixth grade, whenever they started back in the old days. But yeah, and he's coached with some guys who played in the pros, someone who played for Vince Lombardi at Fordham. He's coached with a lot of different people, and he's been coaching for a long time. And so I've and the, now that he's retired, he gave me all this stuff, and the amount of I have I think three or four buckets full of just books and notes and just all sorts of random playbooks that throughout the years how the playbooks change and stuff, from the veer to the spread to the I formation to you name it. There's a whole ton of different formations, but yeah, I've been involved in football my entire life, and it's something I'm very passionate about.
And let's go ahead and stick there, because you do have experience with play calling and play design. So when you look at your dad's playbooks and you're going back, 25, 30 years or whatever it might be, do you ever steal a super old play and add it into yours? Or do you ever see any of the trick plays and go, that's something I got to remember?
Absolutely. There's tons of things I see all the time, and I got videos from back in the '80s where he had like VHS and DVDs from the 90s, and where they put the film on the DVDs and stuff. So I got a ton of film too. Let me tell you, I don't know if there's anyone who watches more film than I do. I watch film probably at least an hour a day. Um, it's something I just enjoy doing, whether it's my own team, the varsity, the JV, because my school's got 3 levels, and then college video or film and pro film. I'm just always looking at it and trying to see what I can learn, what I could do, how I could implement it. And there's YouTube channels, tons of YouTube channels you could follow and watch, and they talk about spread offense, the air raid, and I'll take little things from everything and try to put it into what I can use to move down the field and score as quickly as possible and score. And there'll be teams I play against, and they'll have success on it. I'm like, damn, that was a nice play. I'm like, I write it down as they're doing it, and I'll go watch the film and watch what they did, and I'll take it and put it into our own offense and serve them up some of their own medicine. So it's stuff I like doing and getting into. I've been play calling now at Chaminade for 3 years. I've been there for 5. My dad was the play caller before I took over, and it's something I just love doing. It's like chess game. I don't know if you play chess, Craig, but I'm a big fan of it. And when you can play chess and you're playing chess out on the football field, matchups between each player and run game, the pass game, and there's just little details. And if they don't work, things slow down. If your offensive linemen don't step the correct way, you're not running the ball up that hole. And if their head doesn't get across the body, it just gets you stranded. So there's a lot of little details and a lot of things that need to be perfected and done correctly by each person. And when you hear Bill Belichick talk about do your job, it's the most simple but the most realistic thing you could tell people is do your job. Stop trying to do someone else's job, and just do your job, and things will unfold the way they're supposed to.
And you know that I can't play chess. You know that I can't play chess. So
I
of
wasn't
course
sure
you're
if you
going to
ever
do that.
picked it up or not.
Oh, come on, you know I didn't pick that up. But I want to talk to you a little bit about Long Island, because we've been talking about your experiences with football on Long Island. And when people start thinking about Long Island and the greater New York City area, they automatically go to basketball. So what is it about football on Long Island that you can share with people that aren't too familiar with it?
I don't think people realize how much talent there really is on Long Island. As you can see, there's a kid from Long Island now. He's quarterback at Wisconsin. There's a kid from Long Island playing quarterback at Michigan. There's a kid up at Syracuse. There's kids all over the country playing from Long Island, and I think people forget that Long Island has such strong football because there's so many high schools, so a lot of it gets diluted. So the teams aren't like there's a few teams. Don't get me wrong. There's a few teams that are stacked every year and play like well coached and have some great athletes. But I think every team has like a few good athletes. And if you put all Long Island team, and then you get the all city team, and like there's some talented kids that come out of New York, and I just think people don't respect New York's talent just because of the colleges surrounding it. And there you have Syracuse who's been struggling for years, Rutgers who's changed to the Big Ten and has been struggling for the last few years, and you got one AA school, Stony Brook on Long Island. Hofstra used to be a program, but no more. And I think that these smaller programs just have struggled, and if they could get the right kids in and win some top tier games, I think they could really change the dynamic and the demographics of the way football is looked at on Long Island. Because, like I said, Long Island's got some great talent. It really does. A lot of people have come from here. Like Vinny Testaverde, he's a Long Island guy.
Now, I want to ask you about coronavirus because it threw off the schedule at the NFL level. It threw off the schedule at the college level. But I haven't really spoken to anyone about how quarantine and restrictions on gatherings as far as number of people and all that sort of thing, how it impacted the high school level. So what was your experience when it came to coronavirus and workouts and just how you were able to go about your team activities?
Well, obviously, as you know, Long Island's, it's kind of a pretty liberal state for the most part. So they right away, Governor Cuomo kind of like shut things down, but the Catholic League, most of the schools don't take funding from the state, so they could kind of do what they want, and but they all decided at the end of the day not to have a football season. The public schools all decided right away we're going to push everything to the spring. So they're going to have, the winter sports start in January and then have the fall sport after the winter sport in like February, March, April, and then have the spring season. But football was like, oh, let's have it. And then the last minute they decided not to, and they're going to try and have it in the spring as well. But to try and get the kids to do something, they had decided to have a 7-on-7 season. So how everyone does in the off season, they have 7-on-7. They go and play other schools and have a national championship for it. We just did a Catholic League 7-on-7. So, well, we had 50 something kids come out for the JV. So, like I said, there's 3 levels at Chaminade. Freshmen, us and St. Anthony's were the only schools that came up with a freshman team. We had 130 kids want to try out for football, and they all wanted to play flag football. So with the freshmen, we just did something amongst them. We had twice a week we played inter squad tournaments and broke all the kids up, had a tournament. It was fun. Last day, they had first place, fifth place, and third place, and there's 6 teams. It was fun. It was a good time. The kids enjoyed it. And then JV we played against, and varsity we played against other schools. But yeah, everyone had to wear masks. Every practices were, twice a week instead of 5 days a week. And then games were on Saturday. Everyone had to get scanned with their temperature before you walked in. Once you pass your temperature, you go in. You have to wear a mask. And then if you been around more than 10 other people, because all these kids play like lacrosse and other sports throughout the year. So if they're at lacrosse, they weren't allowed to come and play football because they were exposed to other people. So there were rules and everything and guidelines we had to follow. But all the kids and everyone, they followed the rules, followed the guidelines, and we were able to have a 5-game schedule of 7-on-7. It was some good football too. It was a lot of videos. I put one of the catches up on my YouTube channel, but it was a pretty nice catch. But there was a ton of them. That's only one of the many, and it was fun. It was a good time. The kids enjoyed it, and I already have kids email me wanting to work out on tomorrow, try and get out there and practice a little football and get better for the season coming up. They want to play ball. All these kids do. And the thing was, while they're on the field, they were allowed to take off the mask. But as soon as you were done playing, you had to put the mask back on. So if you're on the sideline, you had to wear a mask. So they kept this restricted, but we didn't have any issues. No one got sick. No one got COVID, nothing like that. And we had a nice little 7-on-7 season.
Now, I want to know, for some of the seniors in your program that were being recruited and were really looking forward to that fall season to try and, get noticed by a college or whatever it might be, how have you guys within the program, as far as the coaching staff, try to keep those kids focused on when they get an opportunity, or what is the plan if there is no season?
That's something that we're hoping doesn't happen. That's a huge possibility that it won't happen, which be unfortunate for a lot of these seniors. They won't get to play a senior year of football. And as you know, someone trying to get a scholarship or go somewhere or has their hopes up for something, senior year is huge for a lot of kids. They don't get recognized. A lot of times they get recognized senior year because they grow and they hit the weight room. Things change. Their body changes. So senior year is a big year for these kids. But a couple of coaches on the JV and varsity, they decided to put together a combine. So we did a combine for the seniors. A couple of juniors were invited, and they did the reps of. If you go on the Chaminade Twitter handle, Chaminade Football, they have all the kids listed and stuff, and they say their name, what year they are, the school, and then they show them doing the 40, and it has their time, and it has them doing the shuffle and the cone and the bench press and the vertical and the long distance jump, it was like a little combine we did, video, and allow these kids an opportunity to try and send stuff to coaches along with their junior tape and stuff like that. So just an opportunity for them. I know it's not the same as playing the season because the varsity's coming off a championship season, hoping to go back to back, but unfortunately, and so was the JV. The JV also won the title. So, yeah, we're hoping for a lot of things this year. Fortunately, and we got a unbelievable group of seniors. The running back's phenomenal. The kid finds the hole and crushes it. I think he had almost 2,000 yards and like 20 something touchdowns this past season. So he had a good year as a junior.
Now, Kyle, I want to switch over to ask you a few questions about wrestling because I know we talked about your MMA, I guess, writing right now and your coverage in MMA, but starting out, you were also big into wrestling. You wrestled through high school. You covered wrestling. You covered the NCAA Division I championships. So you have strong wrestling knowledge and a strong wrestling base. I want to ask you about what makes wrestling such a good off-season sport for football players, because I feel like whenever we're talking about a Big Ten lineman in the draft, it's always like, oh, he was a 3-time state champion wrestler. Or, even with certain linebackers, you can just see with their aggression through the ball carrier and the way that they hit, it's just so good with the way that they're able to absorb contact and manipulate their body. So, Kyle, talk to me about wrestling and football. How does it all go together?
Well, it's funny that you say that because my old man also coached wrestling for 38 years, 35 years. I also coach wrestling for about 10, 12 years. Don't currently coach high school wrestling, but dude, I think one of the biggest things is toughness. You know how they always talk about competition and how it makes you better. When the athletes go to I want athletes to do, like football players, I always tell them, play a sport, don't just weight lift, because you're not competing against weights. You'll get bigger and stronger, but you'll lift during season as well, during basketball or lacrosse, whatever you do, but you get bigger and you get more, and you're more competitive when you play the sport. So when you wrestle, because you don't play wrestle, you wrestle, um, you get tougher. This toughness, and then when you're talking about the linemen and stuff, for the linebackers and how important it is for them, and I think it's important for all athletes on the football field, because the wrestling stance, it teaches you like a good solid stance, especially as a lineman. You want to get lower. So you want to get lower on the offensive line, the D lineman, and D lineman wants to get lower than the offensive lineman. So you learn to bend your knees, and don't bend at the back, bend at the like, drop your butt. Get underneath people, hand fighting, just all the toughness and footwork, and not to cross your feet, to shuffle, and there's a lot of things that translate. And I don't think people who are unsure about wrestling really understand how much of wrestling translates over to football. It's unbelievable, the amount tackling for linebackers or any defensive guy. That's my high school football team. We were county champs my junior year, and almost the whole team was wrestlers. Almost everyone, and the head coach was a wrestling coach. But we had a pretty solid wrestling team through my whole high school career, and the football team was pretty good because we had a ton of wrestlers, and we knew how to hand fight and how to get underneath people and push them forward, and just fight and toughness. And the amount of conditioning you do in wrestling is insane, and just mentally makes you tougher for football. And when you get in those overtime situations and you're on the goal line, you have to get that 1 yard to score. You have to run through your mind like, we all this hard work we put in, let's get this 1 yard. And I think people who haven't gone through tough situations fail because they haven't been in those situations where you do fail every day. And wrestling is one of those things where it's one of the few sports where, unless you're winning the state title, you're ending on a loss. So it's tough. Like, you want to learn mental toughness, you want to learn stance, you want to learn hand fighting, you want footwork, a solid base. And it goes for receivers, it goes for linemen, it goes for running backs. everything, moving your feet. Because when you're getting a double leg takedown or single, you want to drive your feet and just keep running. Same with football. When you're getting tackled as a running back and you just keep driving your feet, you're able to break tackles and keep going. It's just a different mindset that I don't think you have if you say just played just lacrosse and weightlifted in the winter. Now, don't get me wrong, I played lacrosse in high school, but a lot of what lacrosse doesn't translate over to wrestling, football, because of the way they juke and the way they run, and it's much different than football. But being an athlete like that in lacrosse, a good athlete, definitely helps for football. But wrestling, and there is no better sport than wrestling for football.
Now, I just got to ask you something random. Have you ever coached a quarterback that wrestled?
Yeah, actually, I have one of the kids. I've a few, but the kid I just coached this past season, last fall, he was the backup quarterback because the starting quarterback was phenomenal, and the backup quarter played receiver, but the backup quarterback was a wrestler, or is a
In-
wrestler.
Interesting, because a lot of the athletes that I've talked to, especially the quarterbacks, when you hear they're multi-sport guys, I get a lot of football, basketball, baseball. I never really, football, whatever, track. I never get any wrestling. So I was just wondering if quarterbacks wrestled. Um, Now, I just want to ask you something else about wrestling and football and how that all goes together. You talked about the conditioning aspect. I've heard some athletes say they shy away from wrestling if they're a football player because they're afraid that they're going to lose too much size with the wrestling workouts. How can you talk about that, and what can a high school athlete do if they do want to wrestle and they're worried about losing a bunch of size due to the intensity of wrestling?
I've heard that myth too, and a lot of guys do because a lot of high school kids will lose a lot of weight, but a lot of it has to do with their body growing and stuff, and they're just thinning out and leaning out. So by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're thinner, and they're like, oh, they blame it on wrestling because the amount of conditioning. But there's plenty of big guys who keep their weight on, and it comes down to one of the key factors in sports, and high school gets lost a lot of times. And I try to emphasize it with the kids is how you eating healthy, and how many calories you take in it. Because if you can put more calories on, keep it like a good calories too. I'm not talking about like McDonald's and fast food junk, but if you could eat a lot of food and keep your weight up, wrestling, yeah, you want to maintain weight, but from the end of wrestling season, which is mid March or early March, all the way to August by the start of the football season, if they can't gain by weightlifting or eating correctly and put the weight back on, then they're not trying. That's my thought. That means they just want to keep a certain body style, because if you want to be ready for and be the football player you want to be, you'll put the weight on. You'll, whether it's weightlifting or eat and the way you eat, you can put the weight back on.
And now, Kyle, the last thing before we get out of here, and I'll let you get back to your night. When you think about where we are today in terms of player safety and everything that's being made about head injuries in football, is there anything that you've seen with your athletes that are also wrestlers? Are they a little bit more aware of head placement and different things like that? Would you say that they're actually more safety aware or play safer than people that don't wrestle?
To be honest, I never thought about that, but I guess that makes sense. Like, well, they would understand what head placement a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that comes down to just coaching in general, because that's when I like, as like a freshman coach, like the emphasis of head up is the amount of kids. You'll be surprised. I'll have 130 kids try out for the football team for just the freshman level. We cut and keep 60, and throughout tryouts, and when we start tackling, no matter what we do, as soon as we put a helmet on the first day, everything is always head up, head up, head up, head up. Tackle with your head up, use your shoulder, tackle, head up, like never put your head down. And a lot of times you'll see in games and scrimmages, these kids put their heads down, and the coaches don't pull them out. The kid on my team does it. We rip them out of the game and yell at them, but not like to destroy them, to ruin the kids, trying to lack of a better word, just their
His morale.
Yeah, thank you. His morale. But you show them that you're concerned for them, because that's the number one thing. You're worried about their safety, because people think by putting your head down you're going to hurt them, but you're more than likely going to hurt yourself before you hurt them. And you don't want to be rolling around in a wheelchair because you put your head down to hit some kid you might be mad at because he ran over you to play before. It's stupid. It's a high school game. You got your whole life ahead of you, so keep your head up. And if a kid keeps putting his head down, we'll bench him for the day. And I don't think enough coaches do that. But I do think they're and that's what Little League always makes me worried, because a lot of coaches don't teach the head up, or don't know enough to teach you the heads up. And we do have to take a concussion course and stuff like that in order to coach each year, and just a refresher and something to make sure every coach knows what they're doing and stuff. So, but to me, that's super important, is teaching head placement and keeping your head up and just doing the right thing. And first day they get the helmets, we make them read the back of the helmet. That's the warning sticker, and we don't pull that off, and they have to read it so they understand how important it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Kyle Carroll, high school football coach at Chaminade High School on Long Island, and also an MMA reporter and writer for MyMMAnews.com. We just spent a little bit of time diving into Kyle's brain, learning a little bit about the football culture on Long Island and some of the correlation between wrestling and football, and how it can help not only your offensive linemen, but all of your athletes in your program. So, ladies and gentlemen,
hey everybody, Craig Forstall. Thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @that_sports_guy to catch all the latest updates and podcast episodes. Until next time, stay safe and be easy.